Welcome, everyone. Another back and forth with Becker and Orr. Lots to talk about today. You can see the topics all on the bottom of the screen there, including the lead-off topic, the turbulence in September. Is that a market crash? Is that just a correction? We're going to go through all the details. Kevin, let's just dive right in. I'll pull up two charts, U.S. and Canada. I'll give you a quick take, and then you can give me the answers. You can tell me what's going on and solve the market riddle here for everybody. Or maybe that's asking too much. But let's start with the U.S. You can see we hit that March 2022. We got to the same level. That was in August. Then we pulled back. And then we were flirting with that August 2022 level. We hit it twice. We actually went below it. That's about the 4,300 level. On the screen there, it actually came back up. It's above it this morning. So we're back into that little range on the U.S. side. And if U.S. little range, Canada definitely a big range. It's been the kind of sideways for all of 2022. That May 2022 zone, we got to that zone 5 times, and every time we kind of dropped back down. And then you can see the support level there twice, December 2022 and March 2023. We got there. So far, this correction, we have not gotten to that level, but you can clearly see the Canadian market going sideways with the U.S. market only recently having that kind of turbulence. Your take, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, I mean, if we take it on a short-term basis, traditionally, August and September tend to be the worst months of the year, no matter what year it is, whether it's in a positive year, whether it's in a negative year. Those tend to be the ones that have the biggest scenario. We're coming out of summer, kids are back in school, people are back at work, that golf season's over, not going to the lake, yada, yada, yada. And that's why you may see some of this downslide that's happened over the last roughly 6 weeks that's gone on. If we take a look at it on the longer scale, though, again, there's a variety of different options for why that may happen. I mean, the U.S. has had a hugely successful first half of the year, and then now all of a sudden it's getting caught in that, okay, is inflation controlled? Is it not controlled? Is it sticky? Canada's sort of had that all over the place. We've had to watch a lot of our aspect being a nation that concentrates in that energy sector, oil prices. If oil price has been up or down has had a huge effect as to whether or not the market's done that sort of scenario. It's true. I do believe that what we've had is a correction more so than a crash. Normally, to me, the crash would be what we had more or less. It was a large correction in 2022. We've had a little bit of recovery, but the market's trying to find its way, at least in Canada. Are we in recession? Are we soft landing? That's been going on since the end of last year. With that aspect, the market really doesn't have a defined direction going forward for it. So that's why I think we're getting caught in that range as of, sort of December of last year.
Yeah, and related to all of that is interest rates, right? So you talked about the inflation piece. The inflation numbers just this morning for the U.S., the PCE deflator came out lower than expected. Maybe that's part of the reason we're getting a bit of a bump today, some green on the screen. But in general, inflation was a little higher than anticipated in Canada. We had that later. And related to that, you're seeing reaction, market trying to anticipate. What does that mean? Rates keep going up? Do they go down? Are we at the peak for rates? There's a little more to go. That all plays in to a bit of a market reaction. Like, where are those interest rates going to be? How high is the inflation going to be? And that obviously relates to what you talked about, is recession, right? That's kind of the underlying theme there. Is it going to be a recession or not? 2 quick points. Kind of on the market as a whole, I get the feeling part of it. When the market falls a little, we always fear it's going to fall a lot. Because no one likes to see it go down, period, let alone a large or a small decline. So once it starts going down a little, the fear is it's going to go down a lot. But historically, that's not really the case. Big drops don't happen frequently. In fact, they're quite infrequent. Usually you'll see a small drop, like a 5%, that like 3 times a year on average. That'll happen. A 10% correction once, sometimes twice a year. On average, and the larger one, like a 2022, like that happens once every 4 or 5 years, and that might be a 20% or so in that zone. So this kind of fluctuation, I'd say it's probably in the first category when you get kind of that 5-10% zone, which happen a couple of times a year. But I get it. Coming off of 2022, we're all a little extra sensitive to the fluctuations of the market, so it's certainly understanding. I'm going to pull this up because you mentioned it earlier about seasonality. And perhaps this could give us a bit of context. This is a tweet. Do we still call them tweets? It's no longer called Twitter. It's called
X's or whatever they would be.
Regardless, whatever you want to call it. Ryan Dietrich made this public on that social media platform. You can read it there. Pre-election years are usually strong. They're in the first half. He's referring here to the U.S., and that absolutely was the case in 2023. They take a break in the fall right around now, and then they have a strong Q4. And you can see the chart there with the orange line being all the pre-election years. He's doing a model there going back to 1950. The green line is 2023. And you can see it's followed it pretty closely there, Kevin. And it's got to the zone where there's typically turbulence. And lo and behold, that we're actually getting some turbulence. So not every year is going to follow this mold, but so far 2023 has actually been acting pretty normal if you compare it to other pre-election years in the US. Could that be part of what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think it is. I mean, let's face facts. Each year is always different. I mean, we've come off of 2022 that was not a good year by any stretch of the imagination, and things started to turn around in 2023. You figured that might happen based on everything that was going on with inflation, with interest rates and everything else. So that has to be a part of the reason why you saw that initial uptick. And then again, the other factor going into a pre-election year is always that same scenario that comes out where, okay, we know what the government looks like for the next year, but we may get a new one the year after that, at which point are we going to get change? And change really, as scary as it is for some people, is a good thing for the markets because you never really know. New policies could come in, could help the market. So people get that anticipation. Then you start to see that buying in. And again, summer, as you mentioned, the seasonality here is that August, September thing. But you're right, towards the end of the year, we may start to see that stuff sort of November, December pick up, and we could have a rally into the end of the year going on. And you're right. I mean, the biggest factor is also deciding, why do we not have that fear drives the market a heck of a lot more than greed does, which is why you usually see bear markets lasting maybe a year to 18 months. And then the corresponding bull is usually that 4 to 5 year time frame. So, I mean, that's the bigger factor. So again, you're right. If we see things go down 1 or 2 days, we panic sell everything, it stops, and then all of a sudden we start that movement up again. But yeah, I think we're more in that it's been a correction mode. We're trying to find out exactly what direction's going on. And this is why I'm not seeing crash. I'm seeing more correction going forward.
Yeah, and related to this, you talked in Canada, because a lot has to do with the U.S. Certainly, that election cycle is very U.S. driven because their presidential cycles are exactly 4 years. Unlike Canada, we just kind of pick dates, not New Year. That's a whole other topic. I won't go into that.
We'll get off that one.
So we don't do that kind of seasonality, at least election cycle in Canada. But we did talk oil earlier, and that's certainly big in Canada. And we'll pull this up. I mean, from June onwards of this year, oil has been definitely moving higher, kind of broken out, or on the verge of breaking out, in my opinion. But you had a big uptick after the pandemic drop of 2020, leading right into the first half of 2022, then that pullback mid-2022 onwards. And now we're seeing the other side there. Oil prices have been bouncing back. And again, I'm kind of drawing the line there from the prior highs that we saw near the end of 2022. And we're right there, almost above that zone, on the verge of a little breakout. Oil price is going to continue to move up, Kevin.
That's the hardest call. I think that's all going to depend on where the inflation numbers go. I mean, theoretically, 2022, you had oil prices start to shoot up because basically pandemic stuff was ending. The world was opening up again. We were going to be needing tons of oil, so you drove the price up because the supply is going to be there. We saw that everything didn't come back quite as fast. We had that high inflation. People cannot afford things as good as they could beforehand. So you didn't see as much of the oil being bought. So all of a sudden prices went down. Then you had OPEC and the Russians cut supply. Again, that's been a huge factor for why we've had this recent move up, is that with limited supply out there and the theory out there being more soft landing than recession, all of a sudden we're looking at, okay, well, people are going to continue to spend the money. Inflation seems to be somewhat under control, even if it's sticky at this point. So again, you're starting to see, without that massive amount of supply being online and they're holding it over, oil prices are moving up again. I think that as long as inflation maintains around that 3% level, you could see it go closer to 100. But if you see the Canadian side of things and the US starts to do it where you're closer to 4, you may start to see those oil prices, even with the supply cuts, coming off a little bit more.
Yeah, which makes perfect sense, right? It's kind of related to the underlying demand. That's kind of what all these other factors are getting at, right? If the economy is slowing down, you see some kind of global slowdown, global recession, well, they're not going to be using as much oil. Or if we do get something that might look like a soft landing, or at least avoiding a big recession, well, demand will be higher, and you could actually see oil prices continue to go. And then all the offshoots of that, right? That's going to be tied into inflation numbers. It's going to be tied into interest rate cycles. It's all going to be related to that particular topic. And you can see here in Canada, this is the WTI. I should mention that. So this is priced in US dollars. Quick note, oil, whenever you see it on TV, usually it's priced in US dollars.
Yes, very much so.
But very much impacts Canada. So this has been the big driver for the Canadian market. The banks haven't been doing as well. Materials until late didn't do a whole heck of a lot. It's predominantly been the energy sector since June. And there's really only 3 big sectors in Canada. So if only one of them is doing the trick, hard to get out of that range for the TSX. But we'll move on here, Kevin. We'll have a little bit of fun with a lightning round. We got lots of pop culture topics we could dive into here. I'm going to go first, okay? I got a few questions ready to go.
Okay, let's hit it.
Okay. We just talked oil, so I had to bring this up. We're going to lead off with oil. Where oil prices going to be at the end of the year?
I'm shooting for oil going to be around that $90 a barrel mark. Roughly where we are right now, it's a little higher. I honestly believe that if the inflation numbers stay where they are right now, there's always that fear until the Fed or the Bank of Canada comes out and says, no more interest rate raises. You're going to have that fluctuation. That $90 barrel oil looks like a steady point to stay at.
Gotcha. You talked about interest rates. That's my next question right there. Bank of Canada meets October 25th. Where are rates going?
Well, I had this question designated for you later, but I guess I'll answer it now. I am on the basis that I believe both Canada and the United States are going to pause interest rates for the rest of the year. I do not believe that the interest rates that have been raised yet have had that full effect going through the market. I think you have seen that inflation has come down, even though it was higher in Canada recently. The numbers you reported this morning for the U.S., I think they're going to put it on pause and see where everything goes just to maintain that. So I'm saying no interest rate raise, at least not the rest of this year.
Okay, I'm changing gears here. Instead of asking you a take on a financial item, I got a trivia question for you here. So definitely on the spot, but it's in your wheelhouse. It's about movies. So trivia question here. See if you can get this. So what we're looking at is the top grossing movie worldwide, according to Box Office Mojo, that never hit number one. Top grossing movie never hit number one. I'll even give you the number. 926 million is what this movie brought in. So big numbers, but never hit number one. Could you guess the movie?
Jeez. That's definitely, it's in my wheelhouse, but it's not one that because every movie I can think of that's got high box office numbers.
It probably hit number one, right? That's why it's so tricky.
Probably a number one movie.
It's a recent movie. I'll give you another clue.
Pardon me?
It's a recent movie. I'll give you another clue.
Recent movie. Let's go with Oppenheimer.
That's it. Nailed it. Oppenheimer, 926 million worldwide box office, but in the shadow of Barbie at 1.4 billion.
Shadow of Barbie, exactly.
So it's like the biggest number two movie ever is Oppenheimer. So we'll switch gears here. You can fire away, ask me a couple of questions.
All right, my turn to try and look at things there. Well, based on the fact that we've looked at the markets, they've been here, there, the election year and everything else, will we see a rally by the end of the year for the markets, or are we going to be just sideways from now and basically close where we are?
I think we see a rally. Is it going to be a 20% rally? I don't know, but I do think we get a bounce back off of these levels. I think I did those prior charts where we're nearing those levels of support. I think we bounce off the levels of support and we do get a Q4 rally.
Nice. That sounds good. Okay, dealing with sort of the U.S. election scenario, and I know it's still over a year off away, but the big question comes down to, and this has been a big topic for everybody down in the States, do we see Biden and Trump as the nominees for their respective parties going into the election?
I think so. I think we're going to get a repeat. I mean, lots can change. It's U.S. politics. Who knows? It could get quite crazy, but everything right now is indicating we get a repeat of the last election, and you have Biden and you have Trump. So that's my bet.
Yeah. Okay, I got two quick ones. First one coming up, as you can tell, tonight is the Bomber game. The Bombers are going to be playing the Argos. Now, do they get the win or not?
They do. I think they do. Toronto's a strong team, but they're not even having their starting quarterback. Like they're already putting on the brakes, saying, "Hey, we don't have to worry too much about this." So
perfect. And the last one that I want to know, they did come out on Prime recently with the Continental. You and I are huge John Wick fans, but what I want to know is, what is your view? Is there a John Wick 5 or not?
I think there's going to be a lot of John Wick universe stuff, like the Continental, the ballerina, all the different spin-offs, but I'm hoping they find a way to bring Keanu back for John Wick 5. I would pay to see Keanu one more time as John Wick.
I think so. I'm in the same boat for there. That's all I have for question-wise. I think we've done well and covered the topics really good. Again, if you have questions or you want to ask on any of the topics we've talked about today or any of your financial planning stuff, please go to chatwithclintonandkevin.com. We're more than happy to answer those questions and give you our picks or our views on a variety of other topics as well.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think that we've covered most of the topics we want today. Anything you want to add for final comments?
I think we'll leave it there. Take care, everyone.